Now this is a video all about how the Habs goaltending turned upside down, and I wanted to start things out by saying that this guy right here, Jakub Dobes, is probably going to have the game of his life today. Not saying that anything is guaranteed, I'm just saying that that's a gut feeling I got. The Canadiens play off against the Buffalo Sabres in Game 6 later today, and unfortunately, I am not going to be available to watch it in the comfort of my own home. I actually have an event to attend, so I'll be probably watching it over there, either on my phone or on the TVs. So if there is a video to be made, which likely there will be, we'll come around to it after the fact and once I finish up my activities. So today's post-game video for Buffalo-Montreal Game 6 might come a little bit later in the night. I apologize about that. But still, that doesn't thwart us from talking about the topic at hand today. Let's dive into Montreal Canadiens goaltender Jakub Dobes, and with the recent success he has gone through, ask just how far he is going to take this opportunity, and will it get in the way of the potential future starter for the Canadiens, Jacob Fowler. You see, Jakub Dobes, 24 years old, 6'4", 201, a left-handed catching guy, a fifth-round pick by the Montreal Canadiens 6 years ago in 2020. He's had himself a .914 save percentage and a .228 goals against in the playoffs so far. Game 5 in particular was a pretty big coming out moment for Dobes as a whole, because he let in 3 goals on 4 shots to open up that entire contest. However, after allowing all of those goals, he ended up making 32 straight saves, ending off that game with a .917 save percentage in 60 minutes time on ice. Add to this the .929 against Buffalo in Game 3, the .966 in Game number 2, and then all of the other stellar games he had against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jakub Dobes has ice in his veins. He has vehicular coolant in his veins. He has everything you need to sustain yourself as a top-tier NHL goaltender in the playoffs, and so far he has given us no reason to doubt him. The only other time I would say Canadiens fans were starting to lose confidence in Dobes was the opening period against Buffalo in Game number 5, but he ended up winning. Because Marty St. Louis and the goaltending staff over there, they all decided, hey, we gotta keep this guy in. It's okay. Now, with Jakub Dobes and his rise to power in Montreal and their organization, it really opens the door as to asking what's going to happen with Jacob Fowler, Montreal's quote-unquote goalie of the future. 21 years old, 6'2", 214, a left-handed catching guy who was drafted by the Canadiens in 2023. A third-round, 69th overall draft pick. That's a pretty nice draft selection. Jacob Fowler went out there and had a stellar career in the NCAA in back-to-back years with Boston College. A .926 and a .940 save percentage. That's a pretty strong resume for a guy who had developed in the NCAA ranks before heading over to the Laval Rocket, splitting this season between the NHL and the AHL. Jacob Fowler had a .908 save percentage in 17 Montreal Canadiens games played, and he had a .916 save percentage in 27 Laval games. Make no mistake about it, I'd say that the majority of Canadiens fans believe in their heart of hearts that Fowler is the guy. Everything you want to see out of a Carey Price clone, Jacob Fowler has. The demeanor, the on-ice way that he makes saves, just the calmness that he possesses in his body language, it's all there. If you watched a silhouette of Jacob Fowler making saves, you would kind of be confused, because you might say, hey, wait a minute, that guy, the way he stops the puck, the way he moves, he acts like Carey Price. And with a 9-6-2 record and 1 shutout, Jacob Fowler went out there as a very strong rookie to open up his NHL career. But the question is, Is there going to be a point where he overtakes Jakub Dobes? And if so, when is that point? Dobes is playing probably some of the best hockey I think anybody would have ever expected out of this guy, period. I understand that when he debuted for the Montreal Canadiens last year, it was kind of a last resort type of option, and then he got some really good results right away, so Canadiens fans were surprised pleasantly about that. But Jakub Dobes was a fifth-round guy that didn't really display similar numbers to Jacob Fowler when he was in the NCAA. I mean, Dobes had a .918 in 40 games with the Ohio State University Buckeyes, which is not bad. .918, certainly pretty good, but it's not Jacob Fowler with his .940, for example. So Jakub Dobes, I feel like with the draft status at play and the numbers themselves, it's not like he had a super high amount of hype before making his debut with the Canadiens last year and getting off to a hot start. But now, I guess we're really learning that things can change quickly. And it's why you have posts made by Dauber on Twitter that go out there and say things like this. Jakub Dobes is looking like the real deal. A clutch superstar goalie who doesn't get fazed by 3 fast early goals. Everyone thinks he is a placeholder for Fowler, but I'm seeing another Jonathan Quick, Jonathan Bernier situation. Early on, everyone thought Bernier would take over as he was the elite prospect, but Jonathan Quick went and won cups, so Bernier was stuck as a backup until traded. You might have a prospect who could be elite, but if you already have that, you don't mess with it. Now, this is a pretty good sort of retrospective look as to what was in the NHL, because Jonathan Quick is a guy that was born in 1986, Jonathan Bernier 1988. Quick, a tad older than Bernier, and they were both breaking out onto the LA Kings around the same time. Quick, though, I mean, the guy had 72 game seasons with the Kings back in 2010. You don't see stuff like this happen anymore. Bernier, on the other hand, starting out his NHL career, he had some really good numbers right off the bat, but he was a backup. In 2012, when the Kings won the Cup, he didn't see a single game. Meanwhile, Jonathan Quick went absolutely sicko mode, posting up a .946 save percentage and a .141 goals against in 20 games. The Kings lost 4 playoff games all year, and they ended up winning the Stanley Cup, which started with a domineering victory over the President's Trophy-winning Vancouver Canucks. Jonathan Quick was supposed to be the placeholder, while Jonathan Bernier, the next best thing, was settling in. But Quick just took that opportunity in the crease, in the playoffs, and ran with it. And the rest is history. Meanwhile, Jonathan Bernier, while he did have some pretty good years in the Maple Leafs organization and then bounced around to the Ducks and the Avalanche and then the Red Wings and the Devils, he did not have the same level of a career that Jonathan Quick was able to accomplish for himself. And ultimately, I'm not saying that Jacob Fowler is necessarily going to be Jonathan Bernier 2.0, but I do think it's interesting to bring up that sort of idea. For what it's worth, the Habitant replied saying that, hey, no, the best case scenario for Dobes and Fowler is a Swayman-Ullmark situation, where they both split the net for multiple years while the core is in its prime. I'd say that that's probably the most peaceful way to run your hockey team, as long as both of the guys are good enough to hold those sorts of roles, and as long as they're probably mentally sane enough to not be the number one and just be okay with being a 1A or a 1B. If they're cordial, then I could see it working. But for right now, it's not really the problem that I think Canadiens fans are thinking about as we await game number 6 in the Bell Center between the Habs and the Sabres. Again, I'm not going to be able to watch this game in my normal setup, so the post-game video might be coming a lot later. For now, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. How do you feel about this Jacob Fowler, Jakub Dobes long-term crease conversation? How do you feel about this? Where is it going to go? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.